Now, before this is Baruch here, and before I can unpack the shiur that we have coming to us, I wanted to go back and make a correction that I said yesterday. The Saude, who was one of the greatest Mekubalim of previous generations, not so far back, maybe like in I should look it up, really, the late 1800s. His name is Shaul Dweck HaKohen. So that's what the initials are, Saude, makes what they call the Saude. Now, this is from the Sefer Eitz Chaim, boy, just 1 second. Eitz Chaim Limso Ahem. Okay, wow. Getting older, and I can't always remember my right hand from my left hand, but I keep trying anyway. Let's take a look at something. Now, this is the parts of Yasos. And inside of the parts of Yatsov, and this is put by the Eitz Chaim Limso Ahem by the Rabbi Mordechai Atiyah, who made all these drawings. It's very, very important for some people learn from drawings much better than the spoken word, that's for sure. I'm a spoken word type guy, but the drawings don't hurt. Here we have this concept. Let's just read it to try to understand. I guess you start from the right. These are the oros. The oros are going to go into these cylinders, and let's see what he means. He says, nefesh, that's the first or. The second or is the or of ruach. Between them, they make the concept of ner, of a candle, of a flame. Mesukanim, ner mesukanim. Then you go to neshama, you're going deeper into the light. You go into chaya, which is deeper into the light again, and then yechida. Now, in the boxes themselves, and all of them are the same. That's why I was talking yesterday about a concept called ovi. So the concept of ovi is that the nature of reality is we're really pretty much on the very, very outside, on the nefesh part, but outside of that, we're in the malchus down here, the malchus far away. So let's see what it says is here. Here's the 10 spheros: Keser, Chochma, Bina, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. He says, I'm not sure what the things on the side mean, but maybe we'll figure it out. He's showing you, I guess, over here that all of these others have wraps. The Kesser has a wrap, and these are different kinds of wraps, which is duplicated right here. Down the bottom is Malchus, so on and so forth. We're concerned about this. So Eric Anpin is considered to be the gar of a partzuf that holds the nefesh. Abba and Ima are the same size, but they wrap the gar, which is on their inside, and Zun, which is at the end, is Malchus, Zer Anpin, and Malchus. That's going to be the lowest part of the penetration of the light in this partzuf. So the light of nefesh. Then we have the light of ruach. It goes down, does the same thing. Eric Apayim, here we are in neshama. The neshama actually fits in to these wrappings. Eric Anpin, Abba, Ima, Zun. What are we looking at? And then it goes Zachaya, that's the next highest. It's a makif, it's a very far away light, but very powerful light of the Ein Sof. And then Yechida, which is even outside of that and more powerful as well. What the characteristics of all of those lights actually manifest, I'm not sure I could see from this drawing. But then I don't know if I can bring this over here. Can I bring it over? Yeah. So then he says that all of this, you see the arrows, are saying that all the wrapping that we have of the lights up above are also duplicated in another section. This is Yisrael Savatavuna. Let's go back on this. I think I can get it like this a little bit. So this says it's Yisrael Savatavuna, which is the aspect of Bina, which actually enters into Zer Anpin, and he shows you the 5 lights that are coming along. What are the lights? The lights are the light of infinity, the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. But the nature of infinity is it's not a light with a candle with a bulb in it. It's something else. It's not that at all. So that's that light. So we call it or, though. It's called or. then that goes into a different set of partzufim. That is actually they enter into Zer Anpin. And it is, let me see if I can show it like this. The nefesh from Yisrael Savatavuna is going to go into the nefesh of Zun. Now these are all the symbols of wrappings of the light of the Ein Sof. Why do you need to wrap the light of the Ein Sof? The light of the Ein Sof is utter consciousness and oneness. It's because we're not one. We're not created to be infinite. There's infinity within inside of ourselves. But we are constantly rolling through life. You start at the beginning. It's like the beginning of trying to trace a circle. And ultimately, the circle comes right back to where it started. As we talk about Gilgulim all the time. All right, now I'm going to bring this back. It was just a little short. Let me not destroy everything. Still working. The cameras can be sensitive here. Now I'm going to take us into some difficult words. Yesterday I heard this phrase, unpack, because that's what's happening here. We're trying to unpack what it is that the RASHASH is telling us. He has partzufim within partzufim. Get it down now, bring it down even more, even lower. And we're going to be looking at this number 1. We'll read some of this. So, for those who are actually interested in this, and I tell you that I'm doing this because I need to do this, to teach this, but I never thought that anybody would actually listen to it, or not in this generation. But I'm surprised that there's an audience of people who are trained in yeshivas that know how to learn a little bit. And this is something you can work with. So I'm happy about that. So, but if you have comments, please send me comments. I like to know that people are really there. I'm Bargosa SIDUR, so there's some glosses on the SIDUR. Mudfus, which is what they call the original SIDUR kind of deal. The Shash Taf Resh Ayin Aleph. So we're in Taf Resh Shin. Taf Shin. We are in Taf Shin 100 years later. And maybe Taf Shin Pei Gimel, Pei Vav is where we're at right now. Pei Vav. So just compare it's like over 100 years ago. Now, where did this particular comment come from? He says, Merebi Eli Achim Lajami Zitzal, Talmud Asada, who was a Talmud of the Sada, Shol Dweka Cohen. He was from Halaf, or what they call Aleppo. Zilcha, Shekosov, and he writes like this, and now we're going to try to understand, and I think unpack is the right word for this, what it is that the Rashash is trying to say. V'zel l'shonu hakodesh. He says like this: B'kol hasidurim mikan maschelas hakavona hanal. I am the Sefer Nahar Shalom, but look over this is his introduction, Nahar Shalom. So look at the Nahar Shalom, which is the siddur of the Rashash. It's a very small siddur, and it's been blown up into what we're learning right now. But at any rate, he says Daf Beis Amadalit. So then he said Nidfas Mechadash Daf Kaf Ahe Amad Beis. Let's go on. And Amad Gimel. He says Shekosov Kodem Zeh. He right before this. Now here we were talking about bringing the Nitzutzos, or bringing the partzufim, or aspects of the partzufim of down below, bringing them up. Bringing up the Birurim, the lost gold that we've been learning about. That's down below. Because of Kodem Zeh. Let's find out what he has and see if we can unpack all of these different concepts of the Rashash. Now you have to unpack that. So the Ein Sof Baruch Hu is wrapped by Ak. That's the language of the Rav. Rak means Adam Kadmon, because the wrapping is in the, as if it's possible to say that, is in the form of a Rosh Toch Sof. It's like a head with a body, and then it reaches some sort of endpoint. So he says like the Hamshech Maha Ein Sof, Nefashos. Now, we just saw a picture of Nefashos, and Nefashos are the lower element. The Nefashos of the Naranchi. So all of the lights of the Ein Sof are refracted into a Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chayin, Yechida. Each one of those will have a Nefesh, a Naranchi within it. So this comes out to be 25. So there's a Naranchi, which is 5, and each one of them has a Naranchi, 5 more Naranchis, 5 more 5s. So he said, "L'chamshek maha ein sof nefashos the Naranchi l'chol parts of Ak, partzufim Ak." So all of the partzufim of Ak, which you're going to say it's a Rosh Toch Sof, so that it's going to be partzufim, I guess, with the parts of the Keser of Ak, which would be something that we really can't talk about too much, but we could see it reflected in lower partzufim. So what was in the head of Ak is really the beginning formation of the template of the templates. I like that phrase. So the parts of Ak, v'lahamshich or malchus the chochma the Ak. So let's go back and unpack this. He says or malchus, so the light of malchus. What light? What malchus? The malchus of chochma, because it turns out that there are partzufim within Ak. And so therefore there is going to be a chochma all the way down to malchus in the chochma of Ak. Partzufim within partzufim. Heim chelik or Ein Sof. These are portions of the light of the Ein Sof. Hamaluvash, which is what these hamaluvash, ba that was clothed inside of it. V'la'avira derek malchios debina. So now let's go back and pack this. What are the malchios debina? So anyway, he didn't say binos. He said the malchios debina. So inside of bina is a whole partzuf, from Keser down to malchus. Look at the malchus of the bina. The malchus is that each one of those parts also will have parts, and each one of them. So let's say, for example, there's a chochma. We'll take the chochma de bina. It's going to have 10 spheros. Each one of those 10 spheros is going to have a malchus, because it's going to be a parts of 2. That's the best way I can back it. That's my understanding of it, but that doesn't mean I'm right. But I'll just keep going with that. So he said. So he says not only is it derek malchios the bina, because you're moving down from chochma, I guess you're moving down from the very keser of Ak, and the zah, and also of zer anpen the binos, and the zah of zer anpen, v'halbishach b'malchus the Ak, and clothe them inside of the malchus the Ak, saying the malchus has 10 partzufim. There are 10 places in the malchus, but he just says in the malchus, into that area at the bottom of Ak. The eredis malchus anaz. So then what happens is it goes downwards, the malchus anaz, imha or niz. I would want to say haganos, but it's anaz that we talked about above. Hamaluvash ba, that was clothed inside of it. Now, what you've heard here is a lot of halvasha, a lot of the panels, the channels by which this moves. But over derech malchios the kachba the chatzilus, and how do they move? They pass through on the pathway of the malchios, because Ak is surrounded by Atzilus. So he said another one, the Havalsha, Va'over derech, and how do they get out? Where does this light go? It has to go through another set of levushim. So he says, Va'over derech malchios the kachba the Atzilus. So in Atzilus there are 10 spheros, each one of them has a malchus, and it passes through them. It means it passes through the bottom part here into Atzilus. Umeir mamshech nefashos, and what happens is it causes to shine, and it causes to be what was the two word mamshech? He pours it down or causes the nafos, the nefashos, the ruchos. These two, which is the ner, which we mentioned before. The ner is the neshama and the. I just said it wrong. There's the nefesh and the ruach. The ruchos, the neramke, the called parts of atzilut, partzufim atzilus, and into all of the partzufim of atzilus. Okay, so this is. All right, so just I'm thinking that this is difficult for me, and I'm not sure anybody can follow along with me, but I'm going to do the best I can. What he keeps showing us is that the light of the Ein Sof needs to be clothed over and over and over again. Now this is something that I'm not sure what it means. He says that once you get this light down to the Malchios of Atzilus, he says, Va'oz, there a yichud takes place. The gar, now I don't know if he meant the gar is Chochmah Bina Das, of a Vok, which is Chesed through Yesod. So he says, unpack this a little bit. So he says, we're talking about Yasos. We're talking about the gar of Yasos, and the Vok and the gar of Yasos making a yichud. Let's just take it the way he says it. And as a result of that yichud, why I'm taking it, because I'm not sure who are the elements that are being misdavik. I mean, in the simple Hebrew, he says, Oz mizdavkim gar v'vok. So the gar is the head and the body. That's what it sounds like. But the gar is actually composed of 3 spheros. They're on top of 6 spheros. So is it that they actually start blending together? What does it mean? I don't know. So we're the Yasos, but we're talking about Yasos, which is the force that enters into Zeranpin and another layer, ultimate layer of Halbosha. Mamshichim, Mochim, Mochim, and as a result of the Mochim that are inside, they start to pour out. And inside of them are lights. What are the lights? The lights are the lights of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. So Lishnei partzufim chagat v'nai, and they send it down to these 2 partzufim, which are chagat v'nai. So what we know about chagat and nai is Chesed Gevurah Tiferes. He's saying this is a partzuf, which has 10 spheros in it. And the nai is netzach hod yesod. So he's saying that this is a partzuf. V'nai, the Chitzoninut, the Penimiut, the zun. And it comes from the Chitzoninut and the Penimiut of Zun. It's going to that. He said that the Chitzoninut and the Penimiut, the Zun, is where we would find actually Chagat Nai. Mizdavkim Hashnei Partzufim Enaz, the Zun. So then you make a yichud takes place in the 2 partzufim, one partzuf being the female part, which is the nun, the nukva, and Zer Anpin, which is the first part. Mamshichim Mochin v'Shefa, and then they cause Mochin the Shefa to start going down. V'chein mizeh lezeh ad hagiyam la'asiyah, until this light reaches a much more outer light. It goes through all of these patterns, these malchios, that he says, all the different wraps, until they reach the lower world, which is a lower world of Asiya. Now we live in Olam Asiya. So that says, Va'oz ben Yekaven Kenizker V'zel L'shono Sham. So this is what he says. Anar Shalom Shaman Omav Gidba Rucha. He says, Yekaven L'chamshek HaMochim V'chashef HaNaz Im ha'or ha'Ein Sof, together with the light of the Ein Sof what's inside of it. Ha'maluvish b'malchios, the partzufi ak, which are clothed, which we said before, in the malchios, because there are 10 partzufim in ak. He says, and each one of them has 10 spheros inside of it. The bottom one is the malchus. Now, what's the thing about the malchus? The malchus is the final part of that level. but it's there to be mashpia to the top part of the level below it, or the level outside of it, depending on how you want to look at it. The parts of ak, but the partzufim kochbad, which is keser choch bebina das, zer anpen, and the zer anpen the silos. V'nislavshim gam b'malchus the chatzilos. So that's the process. The process is the light is filtered through partzufim down till they reach different malchus. V'oz yored ha-malchus im kol ha-oros. So then what happens is the malchus goes further down. It's still b'mashpia. Kol ha-oros ha-nizgar v'over v'derek malchus dekachbad v'zad de bria, and it goes through, we're going to bria now, through the malchus of the keser choch bebina and das. Each one of them is a partzuf the way he's doing it, and there are malchus in all of it. V'zah the bria. O mislavesh gam b'malchus the bria, and they ultimately wind up through the top of the head, which is the kachbad, and all the partzufim there, filtering down into bria. Umeir umamshech l'neran the neranchi the partzufi bria. So we have to find a way to just talk about this particular phrase, the Naran and the Naranchi. But I guess you just have to pack it up. The lights of the Ein Sof have been refracted into 5 different lights called Naranchi. Again, Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Yechida. But each one of those has its own Naranchi. So that's the part that has to be remembered in order to understand this bit of the Rav. V'mamshech neran de neranchi. So we're going to take each one of these has a nefesh, ruach, and neshama. We're going to take that, the partzufi abriya, to all of the partzufim abriya. V'yored v'over v'derek kachbad v'zer anpen. So then the same thing, we're repeating it, and it goes all of this bundle of light. See, our problem is understanding this bundle of light. The light comes from the Ein Sof. It becomes refracted through ak. Somehow, I'm not sure exactly when it becomes, we begin to be able to see the Naranchi. He introduces it in the Eitz Chaim. So he says, it passes the same pattern all the way to the Kachbad of Zer Anpen, into the world of Yetzirah, which is further removed from the beginning. A mislavesh bob malchus the Yetzirah, and it closes itself inside of the malchus of Yetzirah. Ultimately, it filters through all of the partzufim, winds up to the same light which originally came from Ak, from the malchus of Ak, going all the way through the partzufim. Umeir mamshech neranch. So then I notice it in the neranch, and it shines into, causes to flow downwards, the nefesh, ruach, neshama, and the chaya. Now, it doesn't say the yechida, and I don't know why. I'm just looking and learning. So trying to understand this. So he says, mamshech, the nerant, the nerantchi, so that all these 4 parts of each one of the 5 parts, upartzufi yetzira, and all of the partzufim b'yitzir v'yor v'nimshach ha'sheva v'hamochim v'ha'oros ha'nizal that we mentioned up above, the kachbad to the very top of the head, that's the keser choch bebina das, shehem atik. And so he says that if you want to know another definition of keser, talking about atik and Eric Anpen, and then the rest of them, let me see if I'm losing my place, v'ha'oros ha'naz, the kachav. So the kachav is keser choch bebina, shehem atik ve'erik anpen ba'aba ve'ima. They also correspond to those names. So he said the Chitzoninut, the Penimiut that are in the outside of the inside. In other words, we reach the outside first, but what we're trying to do is get in. We're trying to bring this light inwards. The same thing we're trying to do with us, but we are trying to do is bring in the light of the Ein Sof into our lives. It's a beautiful, beautiful consciousness to be able to understand how God operates and to be part of it. So as much as you can, the Chitzoninut is the Penimiut, the Chasiyah. So we finally reach the outside of Yitziyah. But it's the outside of the inside of Yitziyah. The Penimiut is the Atzilus, the Atzia of the Atzilus, and the Atzia Atachta, and for the Sia down below. Shu Lamalchios, the Kachbad, which is where it's going to go to the Malchios of the Kachbad. And then there's Va'oz Mizdavgim HaPartzufim, it causes a yichud in the partzufim. So he says, V'kol zeh min hasidurim v'lo yudate lama. So this is from the Sidurim. He says, and I don't know why. When I'm by myself, I try to do this which is written in the NAHAR SHALOM. Okay. Over SIDUR Mudfas, Rogel. So I think he's playing out here and he's going into different site references, and I'm going to cut this now. I hope there's a few people that maybe kind of follow along, but he's really telling you the detailed pattern by which the light originates. What we understand is light from Adam Kadmon Ak, who is the template of templates, and how this gets reproduced. But each time it gets reproduced, it is mumshach from up above to down below. It gets refined. In what way? It loses the power of the Ein Sof, and it hides it within it. In other words, it's the partzufim are not the Ein Sof; they're clothing, and the light continues to be diminished. And I think we said in other places, and we'll conclude with this, is that when they talk about a tikkun, the definition of a tikkun is hismatus of the light. Because the light of the Ein Sof is nothing. The light of the Ein Sof is not any separations at all. It's total and complete oneness. It has no separations. And this is what we seek. That we seek this oneness because it's beautiful and wonderful. But there's lots of obstacles. We are all Gilgulim, and as a result of that, we have a lot of tinuf, a lot of unpleasantness about us that we have to work on. At any rate, Baruch Fleischman, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to say this is your Saba. I'm working on it at the Tikkun Elevator Kolo.